Well, it looks to me like this ceasefire in the Straits of Hormuz is ending. We all know that a couple days ago there were these attacks where the United States carried out self-defense attacks against Bandar Abbas and a couple of other sites in the Straits of Hormuz. We talked about that in a number of previous videos about how the sites that they attacked were missile launch sites in the coastal area, at key strategic points of the coastal area of Iran. And now we're seeing that things are escalating. Just over the course of the last 24 hours, we're going to go through all the headlines about the Strait of Hormuz and really talk about where things are going from here. So let's get to the headlines. We're going to do some Iranian state media and some Western media as well. So let's hit it. So this is from WANA, Iranian state media, from this morning. IRGC responds to U.S. attack on Bandar Abbas by targeting source of aggression. Bandar Abbas, just to remind everyone, Bandar Abbas is right here. This is a major area right in the Straits of Hormuz, and the United States struck it the other day. They said in a self-defense action. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps announced that it had retaliated against what it described as a U.S. military attack near Bandar Abbas by targeting the American airbase identified as the source of the strike. In an official statement released by the IRGC's Public Relations Office, the force said the U.S. military carried out an attack at dawn using aerial projectiles against a location on the outskirts of Bandar Abbas Airport. Quote, the response serves as a serious warning to the enemy that aggression will not go unanswered, the statement said, adding that any further attacks would be met with a more decisive response. And they ended their statement with the verse from the Quran, victory comes only from Allah, the Almighty, the Wise. And then they put out this video a couple hours later, footage released of IRGC's early morning operation in response to U.S. attack on Bandar Abbas. And here is the video that they put out. This is kind of the comic relief part of this video. Let's take a look. There you go. Well, I hope you enjoyed the 1970s era spy thriller background music there. In a statement, the IRGC described the operation as a serious warning. Okay. Details emerge of overnight clash between Iran and the U.S. Now, this is different than the attack on Bandar Abbas. Check this out. This is separate from the United States' actions from 2 nights ago, which we were talking about over the last couple of days. Look what it says here. Informed sources say the explosions heard overnight in East Hormozgan province and near the Strait of Hormuz were the result of an exchange of fire between Iranian armed forces and U.S. military units, placing the strategically vital waterway back at the center of regional security tensions. So this, just to be clear, this is last night. This means that the U.S. is still engaged in kinetic action beyond what happened a couple of days ago in those defensive strikes against Bandar Abbas, Jask, and Erick. This is new. This is new. And it says that they were striking in eastern Hormozgan province. We'll get to that in a moment. According to the reports, several American vessels attempted to pass through the Strait of Hormuz without prior coordination, prompting a response from Iran's naval forces. Iran doesn't have a navy, but it prompted a response from their naval forces, probably some sort of missile launch. Maybe they were intercepted. The interception rate of the Americans is very high, but they were trying to disrupt these American vessels from passing through the Strait of Hormuz. Air defense systems were also activated in the area, with multiple explosions reportedly heard across eastern parts of Hormuz. Sources said Iranian forces issued warnings after detecting the movements of the vessels before the situation escalated into a limited exchange of fire between the two sides. The American vessels were ultimately forced to retreat and reverse course. Iran had previously warned that any military transit through the strategic waterway must be coordinated in advance with Iranian authorities, stressing that unauthorized movements would trigger a response. Following the incident, reports indicated that U.S. forces fired toward a military base in the area. The U.S. military later acknowledged the confrontation in a statement, but claimed that the exchange of fire did not constitute a violation of the ongoing ceasefire. At the time of publication, no official information has been released regarding possible casualties or damage. However, regional sources reported heightened military alert levels in parts of the Persian Gulf. Okay, let's understand what happened here. So this is what you have here in white, outlined in this red line. This is Hormuz province. Hormuz province is basically the part of Iran that sits on the Strait of Hormuz. That's what it is. Hormuz, as in Hormuz, Strait of Hormuz. This is Hormuz province. Eastern Hormuz province would be this area here. So apparently the U.S. carried out strikes on a military base in Hormuz province. What precipitated this? Let's read between the lines. U.S. vessels try to go through the Strait of Hormuz, which is international waters. They get disrupted by the Iranians. Maybe it means that the Iranians are firing rockets at them. Some sort of military action is taken by the Iranians. And the Americans then fire at the Iranian bases. I'm going to speculate here. I'm going to speculate that the United States is, over the course of the last few days, has changed its tactics completely. We've moved into a new phase. The other day we saw that in what they called a defensive action initially, without specifying the locations, we saw in Arab media that they had hit Bandar Jask, Erick, and Bandar Abbas, and that there were explosions heard south of Larak Island right here. And they said that it was defensive, that they were protecting their navy. And here we get this report that American ships tried to pass through and that the Iranians were trying to block them, taking some sort of action, and that then the United States attacked some military base in this area. My speculation is that the Americans have decided to take incremental steps to degrade Iran's ability to keep the straits closed. The way the Straits of Hormuz remain closed is by the threat not only of the mines, but of rockets being fired from bases and rocket launch sites surrounding the Strait of Hormuz. So I think what the Americans are doing is they're having ships go in there. That's provoking a response from the Iranians. It then becomes a defensive action by the Americans to deal with the threats, but by the Iranians responding, they're also revealing their locations. See, every missile launch reveals the source of the missile. And this is, by the way, what the Israelis do all the time. A missile gets launched, they immediately use that to figure out where it was launched from, and they attack the launch site. I think the Americans might be provoking the Iranians by passing ships through, by trying to get ships through the Strait of Hormuz, provoking the response from Iran, and then using that as a pretext to, in self-defense, carry out these strikes to degrade the Iranian positions. And this way, they're actually shifting the balance. Instead of just being in this negotiation where the Iranians are saying, we're not going to budge and we're not going to open the Straits of Hormuz. Remember, Marco Rubio keeps using this phrase that the Straits of Hormuz will be open one way or another. So I don't think the Americans are waiting. I think that they are degrading the Iranian positions. That is my position. Now, but it's not only about that incident. Here's another incident that took place. I said at the beginning of the video that, the ceasefire here, I think, is coming to an end. This is from today. Kuwait faces missile and drone attacks as Iran's ceasefire remains shaky. Kuwait said it faced a missile and drone attack Thursday. That's today, as the shaky ceasefire in the Iran war was again challenged after the United States conducted strikes targeting Iran, and Tehran said it responded with an attack of its own. Kuwait's military made the announcement without providing further details on what had been targeted. Early Thursday morning, U.S. officials said that U.S. Central Command forces shot down 4 Iranian one-way attack drones that posed a threat around the Strait of Hormuz, according to U.S. officials who were not authorized to comment publicly and spoke on condition of anonymity. The U.S. military also struck an Iranian ground control station near Bandar Abbas that was about to launch a 5th drone. So this is separate from the strikes that were carried out a couple days ago by the Americans. This is last night. So those attack drones were probably what the Iranians used to disrupt the American ships. The United States identified where these drones were launched from. They attacked Bandar Abbas, but they also attacked somewhere in eastern Hormuz. Iran's Revolutionary Guard, via the state-run IRNA news agency, acknowledged the attack around Bandar Abbas airport. The airport is where the drones get launched from. Now, Iran says it targeted American base after fresh U.S. strikes. This is from the BBC. Look what it says in here. The IRGC has said it targeted an American base in the region after fresh U.S. strikes on southern Iran. We saw that in the initial story here, that Iran responds to U.S. attack. They said they targeted a U.S. base. The IRGC did not say where the base was, but Kuwait, which hosts a U.S. base, said it had intercepted hostile missile and drone threats. And now we're putting the pieces of the puzzle together. The United States passes ships through. This sparks a confrontation between the Iranians and the Americans. The Americans then fire on locations in East Hormozgan, Bandar Abbas, knocking down these attack drones. The Iranians, it now seems, early this morning, retaliated by attacking a U.S. base, trying to attack a U.S. base in Kuwait. The Iranian missile launch came after the U.S. shot down Iranian drones over the Strait of Hormuz and struck Bandar Abbas. The renewed hostilities threaten a fragile ceasefire between Washington and Tehran. This is the second time in 3 days that the U.S. has attacked targets in Iran, saying the strikes were conducted in self-defense. Okay, and so that's what is going on. You realize, I said after the first attacks a couple days ago, if you watch this channel, you might have seen this video. I said that what we have to look for in the coming days is this going to continue? Are there going to be more and more of these skirmishes? This is what happens in the Middle East with ceasefires. In Israel, we're used to this pattern. We see it all the time, where there's a ceasefire, and then there's like little skirmishes, a little firing, a little pushing, a little testing the ceasefire. And that's how ceasefires break down. They don't generally break down because suddenly, boom, everyone's back to fighting. It happens in this incremental way. So that's what's happening right now in the Strait of Hormuz. Now, in addition to that, we have this quote that's going viral from President Trump that has to do with Oman. Take a look.
Would you accept a short-term deal that allows Iran and Oman to control the strait? And would they have to open it immediately, or would you be open to that happening over a period of time?
No, the strait's going to be open to everybody.
And who would control it?
It's international waters. Nobody's going to control it. We're going to watch over it. We'll watch over it, but nobody's going to control it. That's part of the negotiation that we have. They would like to control it. Nobody's going to control it. It's international waters, and Oman will behave just like everybody else, who will have to blow them up. They understand that. They'll be fine.
Oman will behave or will have to blow them up. So coverage of this, let's see how the Arab world is covering this. This is from the New Arab, which is a very Arab news outlet. It's actually based in London, but it's Qatari funded. It's not the same as Al Jazeera. It's a different voice from Al Jazeera. That's kind of why it was created. It was created by Azmi Bishara. It was basically a pro-Palestine activist. He's an Israeli Arab who actually sat in Knesset, but he had to leave Israel after it was discovered that he was probably sharing information with Hezbollah. Interesting guy, Azmi Bashara. But he started this news outlet, The New Arab. They're out there online. And this is how they covered this event. U.S. President Donald Trump on Wednesday appeared to threaten to attack Oman if it sides with Iran over reopening the Strait of Hormuz. And then it brings the quote that I just shared with you. Oman is a key U.S. ally which has tried to mediate the U.S.-Israeli war in Iran. The U.S. State Department later posted a clip and transcript of Trump's comments about Oman without any correction or clarification. Now look at what they write here. The 79-year-old, referring to Trump, did earlier appear to mix up Iran and Venezuela, saying that the South American nation whose leader Nicolas Maduro was toppled by U.S. forces in January, quote, no longer has a navy, no longer has an air force. Trump has repeatedly used such phrasing to refer to Iran, which the U.S. and Israel attacked on February 28th. Iran has indicated that it seeks to impose a new reality in the Strait of Hormuz, through which 1/5 of the world's oil normally passes, exacting tolls on transiting ships and sharing the revenues with Oman. So Iran has indicated that. But you see what they did in this piece. They start off by pointing out how, how out of place Trump's comments were, warning Oman. They even imply that he's getting senile by referring to him as the 79-year-old who has mixed up Iran and Venezuela before, trying to say that maybe there was a mistake here. Maybe Trump misspoke because he's getting old. But then they go ahead and say the quiet part out loud, that yes, there have been talks of Iran and Oman charging tolls to go through the Strait of Hormuz, which is international waters. Let's review the map. So where does Oman play a role here? So of course, everything on this side is Iran. What's Oman? So it's a little bit confusing, and you have to understand this. You see this, there's a black line right here. I'm really zooming in. Okay, let's zoom in even more. This black line right here is the border between the United Arab Emirates on this side and Oman, meaning all of this whole tip, it looks like a bunch of islands, like an archipelago, sort of a peninsula. The tip, let's zoom out again. This tip here is part of Oman, and the rest of Oman is down here. This is all Oman, and Oman is actually split in two. It's really weird. Oman goes up to here. There's a border here. In between this line and this line, this is all United Arab Emirates, and then it's Oman again. So Oman is actually divided into two parts. Let's zoom out even more. This is the country of Oman. This is United Arab Emirates. And then the Emirates cuts across and cuts Oman in half, or in two parts. It's not really half. And then at the tip over here is Oman again. So if you go into the Straits of Hormuz, you want to go through them. When you pass through the narrowest part, the most problematic part of the Strait of Hormuz, it's not like you have all these other countries. We talk about, the Emirates and the Saudis and everyone's in the Strait of Hormuz. They're not. They're all in the Persian Gulf. The strait itself is flanked by Oman and Iran. So that is the Strait of Hormuz story. And just to close out this whole issue of the current tensions that are going on, I want to share with you a story that relates to all of this, but it's not central to it. But I didn't want to make a full video just about it. Before we go on, by the way, before we get to this last story, it's very important. I want to make sure that you subscribe and that you are plugged into everything we're doing. Make sure you go over to the Israel 365 News YouTube channel and you're subscribed there. And make sure you watch all the videos. There are a lot of very important videos are being put up there. We just put up another conversation between myself and Dr. David Wormser about everything going on in the Middle East. It's a must watch. Go ahead and check that out, and check out all the content we're putting up there. It's critical. All right, this last story. Iranian missile likely involved in attack on ship in Strait of Hormuz, South Korea says. This is a story from yesterday. An Iranian anti-ship missile was likely involved in an attack on a cargo ship operated by local shipper HMM, whatever, in the Strait of Hormuz earlier this month, South Korea's foreign ministry said on Wednesday. Saeed Kuzechi, the Iranian ambassador to South Korea, denied Iran's role in the South Korean vessel attack, saying his country took no part in it. The Iranian embassy in Seoul did not respond to a request for comment. The ministry made the assessment at a briefing announcing the outcome of a government investigation into the May 4th attack on the bulk carrier, which caused a fire and damaged the lower stern hull. Quote, various pieces of evidence point toward Iran, said First Vice Foreign Minister Park Yoon-ju, adding that Seoul had not conclusively determined who was responsible or whether the attack was intentional. The probe looked at debris from unidentified objects that were found inside the ship after the attack on the vessel. The analysis showed that the ship, named Namu, was attacked twice, and while the first warhead did not explode, a second did. Components in the debris indicated the objects were likely made in Iran. Their engines were similar to turbojet engines made in Iran, Park said, noting that one component had markings that appeared to be used by an Iranian manufacturer. The warheads resembled those used in Iranian anti-ship missiles, the Nur or Qadr, Park said. South Korea summoned the Iranian ambassador to share the results of the investigation and deliver a protest message, according to the ministry. U.S. President Donald Trump said soon after the incident that Iran had fired at the South Korean vessel and urged Seoul to secure shipping to join U.S.-led efforts to secure shipping through the strait. And here's Iran's denial. This is from Iranian state media. Iran rejects Seoul's claim over ship incident. Iran had absolutely no role in this matter and rejects all accusations made against it. That's from the Iran's ambassador to South Korea, Saeed Kuzechi. And he says, regarding questions from journalists about whether Tehran would accept the findings of the South Korean investigation or issue an apology, he dismissed it and warned about what he described as a false flag operation. Quote, we must remain vigilant regarding such scenarios orchestrated by adversarial parties. The Iranian ambassador also referred to the security situation in the region and the Strait of Hormuz, describing some of the recent incidents as maritime piracy. The Iranian diplomat concluded by saying that his meeting with the senior South Korean foreign ministry official lasted around 40 minutes and focused on bilateral relations and ways to expand cooperation with Tehran and Seoul, always ending on a positive note. Earlier, South Korean authorities, while announcing the results of their investigation, claimed that a range of evidence and indications pointed to Iran's involvement, an allegation that Tehran has completely denied. So this was all just dropped in the last couple of days. So while the incident took place a few weeks ago, I think it's notable that in the headlines, while all of these tensions are rising and all these negotiations are going on, that South Korea put this out there and this hit the headlines. They released this report just the other day, and it just adds to the narrative of the bad behavior of Iran in the Strait of Hormuz. So bottom line on this video, let's just sum it up, is that I believe that the United States is having ships pass through the Strait of Hormuz. They're provoking Iranian responses. Those provocations give cover. They give context for the United States to carry out retaliations. It also reveals Iranian capabilities to keep the strait closed. It reveals what exactly their tactics are. The best way to know how they're keeping the straits closed and what the threat really is send some ships through and see what happens. And then if they fire on you, you can also figure out where the drones came from, where the missiles came from, and then the United States is attacking those bases. That's what I believe is happening now. So it is not a static situation. And yeah, that's where I think things are. I think it's very, we're going to watch it very closely, and I'll keep bringing you updates as things develop. God bless.